Okay, we're back. We're at guidelines. We're going to start talking about the guidelines for using dimensions and extension lines. There are a lot of guidelines. When you look in your textbook and see the chapter 11 on dimensioning, that's going to be one of the larger chapters in your book, because they're going to go over a lot of guidelines and do's and don'ts and rules and this and that. So, again, pay attention to it. Okay, here is 8 examples. There's 3 good ones and 5 no-nos. So, the good ones, the upper left. You got 2 rows of vertical dimension lines and 2 rows of horizontal dimension lines. See how they're done. The smaller dimensions on the inside, and the bigger dimensions on the outside. Start out small, go out big, right? And then you look down below that, and A down below, I guess. And again, you have 2 rows. You have your smaller dimensions on the inside and your larger dimension outside. And then going over from the lower left to the next one, the B, the lower B, that's a no. See how they got the dimensions? They're all hodgepodge. They're not lined up with each other. So don't do that. Go above that to the B, upper B. And here they've started the big dimensions on the inside and the smaller dimensions outside, resulting in extension lines and dimension lines crossing each other. That's a bad thing, so don't do that. Okay, going to the right, upper C. That upper C there, they basically didn't draw their extension lines all the way to where they're supposed to go. So make sure your extension lines are supposed to be, you got A, B. Look at A and look at C and see the difference there, and make sure you do A, not C. Lower A, the third one from the left, lower A. You have some location dimensions right there showing, showing where the center of that circle on the left and that rectangle on the right. See how they got their dimensions lined up with each other? That's very important. I'll mark points off if you don't do that. And then the far right B, you got some gaps where they're crossing the visible lines. There's no, don't put any gaps in there. And the biggest no-no of all is the upper right on D, where you have all those. 1, you don't have any extension lines, and 2, you got dimensions on the inside of the part. No, that's bad. That's confusing. It'll confuse the reader. So don't do that. Arrowheads. AutoCAD should take care of that for you for the most part, but back in the olden days, we had to practice drawing. We had to measure them out and draw them and practice drawing them until we got where we could draw them without having to measure and whatnot. We knew exactly what we needed to draw. Leaders. A leader is a thin, solid line directing attention to a note or dimension and starting with an arrowhead or a dot. Okay, for best appearance, make leaders near each other and parallel across as few lines as possible. Don't make leaders parallel to nearby lines of drawing. Through a corner of a view, across each other, longer than needed, horizontal or vertical. So if you look at, there's two drawings there. One on the left looks pretty good. Okay, everything looks like it's done properly. And the one on the right, it's got that POL leader note. It's too flat. Your arrowhead is kind of blending in with the visible line, so that's a bad thing. And that polish, the leader for the polish, that looks like a good leader line. So those are leaders. Drawing scale and dimensioning. On the left there, it says many title blocks include a note such as do not scale drawing for dimensions. Technically, you're not supposed to use a scale to measure things on your drawing. Your drawing is supposed to have all the dimensions on it. It's supposed to be drawn properly and have enough dimensions on there that the reader doesn't have to do any measurements. So, but there could be a possibility if somebody took a scale and measured it. We do it all the time. I'm not saying we don't, but there's a possibility that you could get something wrong, and then your reader is going to be making the part wrong, or wasting material, wasting time, and your company is not going to be too happy about what happened. So. Okay, we'll move on. Direction and dimension values and notes. All dimension values and notes are lettered horizontally to read from the bottom of the sheet as oriented by the title block. Okay, this is called unidirectional dimension figures. Okay, so everything's horizontal. All your text is horizontal. Dimension units. A note stating all measurements in millimeters or all measurements in inches unless otherwise noted is used in the title block to indicate the measured units. Okay, so you want to make sure that the reader understands what units you're drawing in, so they know how to measure or how to read the measurements, whether it's metric or inches, right? Here's millimeters values. The millimeter is commonly used for most metric drawings or metric engineering drawings. One place millimeter decimals are used when tolerance limits are permitted. Two or more place millimeter decimals are used when higher tolerances are required. If you look there, especially in that little window at the bottom across the page there, you have different forms of tolerancing, how to write tolerancing out. For example, B there, it's probably 28.58 millimeters. That's as large as you can make it. But you can make it as small as 28.55. And then over on D, if you go over to D, you have 44.45 plus or minus 0.05. So what that means is that part could be made 44.40 or up to 44.50. So dimension inch values. 2-place inch decimals are typical when tolerancing limits permit. 3 or more decimal places are used for tolerance limits in the thousandths of an inch, and 2-place decimals, the second place preferably should be an even number. So there's complete decimal dimensioning on that drawing right there. Most of the time, if we were able to get to do a drawing, dimensioning drawing, we'd do 2-place decimals, and we wouldn't do any tolerancing either. So
but there may be questions on the exam, so on the quiz, so make sure you understand about tolerancing. Let's see. Okay, we'll stop here, take another break. See you in a minute.